Shalom. Good evening. Hello. I opened up with the word shalom. It's interesting because shalom is used in at least three different usages. The first one is you say hello, shalom. Interestingly, when you say goodbye, you use the same word. So, what is the third usage of shalom? It means peace. So, how are those related when you're greeting someone with a word that has another meaning and then you're saying goodbye? Well, what comes to mind is the word goodbye. The word goodbye is actually God be with you. And tonight, I was thinking about what to say about what's going on in Washington, D.C., in the United States, and the world. So I took out my book of Tehillim, I took out the book of Psalms, and I looked to see how many times the word shalom appears in the Tanakh, in the Torah and the prophets and the writings, and how many times it appeared in Tehillim, in Psalms. And I love random entry. So I opened up the concordance. It has a listing of every time it says shalom. And I zoomed in on the book of Psalms in chapter 122. Kuf Chaf Beis. 122. Now, this is amazing because if you think about this, this was written 3,000 years ago. Okay? That you have Shir Hama'alot LeDavid, that this is a song of ascents, not sensibility, but ascending. This is a psalm, a song accompanied with music written by King David, who is the ultimate spiritual role model, at least for me. And having read the book of Psalms for years and years, 70 out of the 150 chapters are written by King David, who was the Prince of Peace. He wanted to make shalom amongst all the Israelites, and that all the brothers, tribes, should get along with each other. Shalom bayis. Now, sometimes if you use the word shalom, goodbye, bias. See you later, house. Which house? You know what I'm talking about. What we saw yesterday, you are this close to being on a slippery slope. So what do? We reach out and we think to ourselves, let's pray. In Hebrew, they say tefillah. Tefillah, most people think it's what you do from the inside out. Now, that works on a global level, but how do you work on an individual level as a composite of a unified energy that people have? So the word tefillah means self-introspection. People have to look at their behavior, what they're doing. Yes, there's free expression. And I say that when people do not observe each other's boundaries, that's when trouble starts. Physical boundaries, verbal boundaries, geographical boundaries. You got to know your place in life. I think we forgot that last night. And that's not okay. And that I'm putting some thought to this because I would like everybody to express themselves. Feelings are very powerful. They cannot be suppressed because they will then transmute out and reemerge, possibly in a destructive way. You got to feel your feelings. You have to channel your energy. However, we must do these things in a shleimut, in a shalom, peaceful way. It's easy for me to sit here and pontificate or preach. So, you know what? Don't use me as a role model. Let's look at Tehillim. Let's look at Psalms. We all know what is the most popular book known to mankind. So they say it's the Bible. Well, I got news for you. There are 24 books in the Bible. And guess what? Guess which book is numero uno of all the books in the Bible? Is Tehillim, is Psalms. And there's 150 chapters. Tonight, I went to chapter 122, as you heard. This is one of the 15 songs that we would sing either on a pilgrimage to Jerusalem, to the Holy Temple on the 3 pilgrimage holidays, or once we arrived in Jerusalem, we would go to the ritual bath, the mikveh, and we would rise up those steps ascending to Jerusalem. And it says in this chapter, Samachti be'omrim li, I rejoiced when they said to me, Beit Adonai Nelech, to the house of God am I going. Continuing the song that when I grew up as a kid we would sing, Omdot hayu ragleinu b'sha'arayich Yerushalayim. Translating, stand firm did our feet within your gates, Jerusalem. This is our place, and here we're going to stay. Why? Yerushalayim habenuya, the Jerusalem that was built up, ke'ir shechubra la yachdav. How do we have this legacy book? You don't have to go to Barnes and Noble and hunt the aisles looking for something to inspire you. You just look at this, what I just read. That Jerusalem, the built up, is like a city that is united together. There's sand, that there's billions of little grains of sand, and you pick it up and it slips through your fingers. However, there's also concrete, much less in quantity. However, it is coagulated and hardened and it's unified together. And it's what stands for doing the right thing and doing the righteous thing and the godly thing. And the godly thing, it's just simple. What they say. Teach me the whole Torah while I stand on one leg, they asked Hillel. He says, you know something? I'll tell you how to know the whole Torah standing on one leg. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. You should love your neighbor. And most people stop there. I love my neighbor. I'm nice to other people. Kamocha. Like you love yourself. So, it should be a priority to make sure that you purge inner dissonance. And when you say the word lehitpalel, it means self-introspection. What went on yesterday, I'm not judging anybody, but what I'm saying is, if people were taking a look inside, and no one is in their wrong mind, everybody's in their right mind. I'm in my right mind what I'm doing. However, you must be aware of how you look in the world's eye. You want to express yourself? I'm not judging anybody. There's a way to do it. Look how Martin Luther King would express himself. What dignity this man had. What lifelong messages he shared with all of us, that he inspired people till today. That we have a role model of how to behave. Chaos is not the way to behave. That is not the way of God. God is peaceful. Yes, he's an angry God and all of this at times. But normally, God is a loving God and a caring God. He loves us and he wants us to love other people. Yes, I get it. There are things that are wrong and there are things that they shouldn't be. I'm not minimizing that. You got to feel your feelings. But also, you have to represent yourself in a godly way. And you have to represent yourself with kindness to yourself. What are people walking around with anger and rage? Who wants to be near them? You want people to hear you? Then you must understand yourself, that you are one of God's creations. I had an uncle. His name was Levi Kalati. He was the world's most successful Persian carpet salesman. I was fascinated with him. And I would go visit him in London. He was so much larger than life. Anybody that knew him till today, and he passed away almost 40 years ago, they speak of him like nobody else. So I would go to Uncle Levi. I would go to the carpet warehouse filled with 6 gymnasium. Actually, it was Alfred Hitchcock's film studio that Uncle Levi bought, and he housed his business there. So I would go to Uncle Levi. I would say, Levi, Uncle Levi, how do you do it? How did you become the world's most successful carpet man? Like it's like having an uncle in the carpet business. He was the uncle. He said to me, Dear Reuben, I was his sister's son. I was his sister's firstborn. And Uncle Levi said to me, every time I'm about to do a deal and I am with another person, I say, B'Shem Hashem. I'm doing this in the name of God. How many people were saying that to themselves yesterday? I don't know. However, I will continue that what Uncle Levi then would do is he said, I would look into the face of the person that I was about to do a transaction, and I said, I am looking into the face of one of God's creations. I must treat them with dignity, and I must treat them with respect. I must not harm them. I must not violate boundaries. I mustn't say hurtful words. I must observe what's mine and what's theirs. Please respect me. I'll respect you. There is no room for rage and anger. There is room for shalom. There is room for peace and harmony. We all have, listen, each and every one of us are different. Nobody's the same. I remember I said this. I looked around the room where I was speaking, teaching, and they're all looking at me. And I said, when I get up here to speak, I got to tell you something. I look around. Some people are movie stars. Some people are good looking. Everybody's different in appearance. Then I go, some people, they're average. Some people are geniuses. So nobody's the same intelligence. I said, let's go look at their bank accounts. This one has 1 million. This one has nothing. This one has 100 million. Nobody's worth the same. Everybody has a different worth. The one thing, everybody listen carefully, that every human being has exactly the same is 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. There's no such thing as I don't have time. There's no such thing. It's just not the way it is. The answer is I don't choose to use my time that way? If you ask somebody to do something. So now the other side of it is, am I going to lead a deliberate, on purpose life? What am I known for bringing to the world? Doing destructive things, hurtful things? You're allowed to express yourself. You're not allowed to hurt other people. It's just not okay. Okay? I get it. Your feelings are very powerful. Okay. So then, it's how do we choose to use our time? What are we doing with our time? What are we impacting other people with? There are children that are watching us. What role models are we to them? What are we teaching them? To be a bunch of wild animals? You know what? You're an animal. I'm an animal. I'm a domesticated animal. You have to know how to behave in this world. So I think that I'm going to indulge myself with one more Uncle Levi story, and then I'll continue. My brother Ari and I started a jewelry company in 1986, and we experienced success very quickly. And we even got into, at the time, it was called, tell you the name in a second, but it was a catalog showroom. They had 200 stores. The business was huge for us. However, like all the catalog showrooms, best products, service, merchandise, this company was going to go bankrupt. Now, I started my company with $25,000. They owed me $80,000. This would have wiped me out if they took me under. And I was calling for money and calling for money. And the lady that I got on the phone, I said, I need to collect this money that's owed to me. I can't afford to lose it. She said, sir, whatever I can do, I'm going to do. I said, what should I do? She goes, call back tomorrow. Okay, so far the story's not that interesting, right? But then I asked her, what is your name? If you know me, everybody I meet, I ask them, what is your name? If it goes back to a moment in time that defines your character and personality, it was this moment. Because the lady said, my name is Marina. I go, Marina? That's an unusual name. Where are you from? She says, I'm from Romania. I said, let me tell you something. I only know one thing about Romania. She says, what do you know about Romania? I said, I know one thing. My Uncle Levi, the world's greatest carpet salesman, he would go to Romania. My Uncle Levi would go to Romania, and I know that he would go buy carpets in Romania. She says, hold on a minute. Mr. Kalati is your uncle? I never mentioned his name. How did she know this? She says, your name again, Ruben, right? I go, yeah. She goes, I'm going to tell you something. It's incalculable that you're on the phone with me today. Your Uncle Levi would come to the governmental office in Romania where we would export carpets. I was the lowest secretary in the whole place. I was the first person that when people would come to the office to buy, they would meet me. Nobody ever treated me like your Uncle Levi. Every time he would come, he elevated me to feel exceptional about myself. Marina, how are you feeling? The last time I was here, your son had the flu. Is he feeling better? Your husband, did he get another job? He made me feel important. So Marina, and this is true, said to me, Mr. Ibrahimov, here's what I want you to do. We owe you $80,000. Okay, you're going to come here tomorrow. They were in New Jersey, Edison, New Jersey. You come here tomorrow, and I want you to bring a shopping bag with you. So I go, what? She said, I'm going to get a check for as much money of that $80,000 as I can. However, your merchandise is sitting on the shelves in the vault. And whatever we owe you, the balance, you're going to put just what we owe you into the shopping bag. And you're going to take it back to your office, and you will not lose a penny. All because my Uncle Levi treated this person with dignity and respect. That was my role model for how to treat other people. That you look in their face and you see that this is another human being that God created. Thank God. And I want to just continue about the importance of prayer. I remember one of my friend's sons was hit by a car, dragged underneath the car, and in a coma. A while later, I'm away at Pesach, a Passover trip, and I'm sitting with all my cousins, the Kalatis from London. And they hand out a piece of paper, and they said, you should pray for this man. And I look at the name, and I look, that's my friend's son that was in a coma, that came out of the coma, and he's sitting at the table. So my cousins didn't believe me. No, he's in a coma. What are you talking about? I go, Shlomo, send your son Yossi over here. Yossi sits there. And they said, are you the guy that we're saying prayers for? He goes, let me tell you something. I was in limbo. And there were so many people praying on my behalf. If you ever doubt the effectiveness of what you're doing, God's decision is not up to us, but our efforts are. It's part of how do we choose our time. He said, you bombarded my soul with prayer that you pulled me back to earth and pulled me back to be living and to not slip to the other side. It wasn't my time yet. So this prayer worked. So now I'm encouraging everybody that when you pray, one soul and the next soul and the next soul and the collective soul that's seeking peace interconnects people into harmony. Harmony is what we need to have. Spiritual alignment, spiritual connection. So I want to button things up right now. And I want to go to the end of chapter 122. And it says, Sha'alu Shalom Yerushalayim, that you should pray for the peace of your capital, Jerusalem in this case. Yishalu Ohavoyich, serenity should be those who love you, speaking to Jerusalem, that you should have peace. Yehi Shalom B'Chelech. Here we go, goosebump time. May there be peace within your wall. Shalva, serenity, be'armenosayich, in your palaces, your capital. My interpretation. Leman achai v're'oi, for the sake of my brethren and my comrades. Can you imagine? You could pray for yourself. Who doesn't? We all pray for ourselves. When you pray for others, God says, hey, wait a minute. This is an unusual person, that he's not just self-absorbed. He's not just thinking narcissistic ideas. He's saying, I have an obligation not to just live myself. I have an obligation to live for others. A life that sets an example to other people. Adabrana shalom. I shall speak of peace. Bach, in your midst. I'm communicating peace in your midst. There is enough adversarial energy, and Dr. Edward de Bono, the world's foremost authority on developing people's skill of thinking, new idea generation, said that argument is the greatest waste of energy known to mankind, which leaves you to have a conversation and a discussion. If there's a problem, you need to communicate it in a civil way where someone else will hear you. People can't hear you when you're screaming, they're afraid of you. They can't hear you when you have anger and rage. You want to make a difference in the world? You carry yourself with respect and dignity. Last verse, Lema'an beis Adonai Eloheinu, for the sake of the house of God, our God. Avaksha tov lach, I will request goodness for you. So here's my prayer tonight. I want to pull everybody together. I want everybody to know what's bugging them. But I also want to say that we have to align with each other. We all have differences. Like I said earlier, nobody is the same. But how do we choose to use our time? And what are we going to be known for? Is really the question of the evening. God bless you all. Have a good evening.